exposure is it's a broad thing. It's one of the best things about travel. And the two words that you use, culture shock, I think is where it all sort of starts. And it's necessary. It's like jumping into cold water, you know what I mean? It feels terrible at first, but then after you get used to it and you get adjusted, then everything's fine. I think I had the biggest culture shock of my life actually going to China. That was my first sort of, experience with an Asian country, with that type of a language barrier, because it's not like going to Spain where you could kind of see no bueno, et cetera, and fake it till you make it.
Sure.
There's none of that when it comes to Mandarin. Like, you either know what you're saying or you don't. And so that was weird. Even the food was different. The way that they dine was different. So all of these things come into the definition of culture shock, which I think is, the gateway to exposure. And after you have that culture shock, that always stays with you after you go on a trip someplace. And it causes you to look at the way that you do things wherever you're from and say, they do this differently from me, or I do this differently from them. And then if you get too in depth, you start asking the whys. Like, why is it that they do this? Why is it that they do that? And that's where the real, I think, conscious expansion comes from, which is, I think, the biggest benefit of exposure.
And it just broadens your perspective on how things can be done, the different things that are being done, and how you could possibly incorporate that into the things that you do when you go back home, or wherever it is that you end up.